Welcome back to another episode of One with Mitch Lafon. I'm your host, Mitch Lafon. Joining me this week from Stryper, Michael Sweet, but he's here to talk to us about his great new project with George Lynch, formerly of Dokken. The album is called Only to Rise. The band is Sweet and Lynch. And I got to tell you, I loved this album so much. I was sent an advance promo just digitally, but I had to fork out the $40 to get the Japanese import, to get that extra bonus track, because I needed more. So I got to tell you, folks, you got to pick up Only to Rise if you already haven't. And joining me to talk about Stryper, Sweet and Lynch, and all that is Joel Hoekstra, guitarist for Whitesnake, another one of my favorite bands from the 80s. Good day, Joel.
Hey, how you doing, Mitch? Thanks for having me again, man.
Good, yeah. You know, I love doing this with you because you're so much into the music as well, and let's just get right into it. You and the Stryper guys and Stryper, you've got a bunch of stories, right? So, what does Stryper mean to you?
Yeah, well, Michael's a friend of mine, and Oz, and we're particularly close. So, it all started, I guess. I was probably like a freshman in high school. One of my friends said, "Hey, man, I got a ticket to go see this Christian band called Stryper. Do you want to go?"
And let me guess,
Christian
right?
band.
You rolled your eyes.
I don't know, man. Right. Said, I don't know. And he said, "No, I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you, they're great." And he's like, "You gotta come see this." And so he twisted my arm, and I went. And I think they were just like on the front end of like Soldiers Under Command tour, so they were just blowing up. And I was blown away, dude. I went home. I was like, that was the most kick-ass show I've ever seen. They were like on fire. And so I was all about them as a young guy, and learned all their tunes and everything like that. And but one of the first cool experiences I had with these guys is I went to GIT as a younger guy, the Guitar Institute of Technology out of Hollywood, and Oz Fox came and did a clinic there. And I walked up to him kind of sheepishly and gave him my 4-track cassette demo, which is just me with my instrumentals and whatnot, like everybody was doing back then, handing out demos. And I think it was just like a few days later, I was sitting in my apartment out there, and Oz gave me a call, and he just said, "Hey, Joel, I just want to let you know that I listened to your demo, and that's great. You know, you're really a great player, and you're headed places, yada, yada." And that really did a lot for me as a young guy, a young player where you don't have so much confidence and self-esteem at that time. So Oz really, he talked to me for like, it was a while about my demo and all the stuff that was on it. And anyway, it really meant a lot and shows what a good guy he is. And
how far back would that have been? Was that in
was like
in the 90s?
Probably 90, 91,
wow.
90, 91, something like that. So that was a really good thing on his part, just putting out positivity into the world in terms of the music scene. And so I'm always happy to bring that right back to these guys. And Michael did something very similar when Night Ranger had opened for Boston when he was with Boston, and I was brand new in the band. I think I'd only been with them for a couple months or so. This was like 2008. So I think it was Night Ranger Sticks Boston, and we played a show together. And this was back when everybody was still doing MySpace over Facebook. And Michael sent me this really nice inbox saying he had watched our set and what a great job I was doing in Night Ranger. And I was like, man, you know what? These guys are class guys. The Stryper guys are class guys, just nice guys, no egos, just not trying to get anything from anybody. Just took time out to write a guitar player who was still fighting to make a name for himself. And I just thought that was a really nice move on his part. So we've continued to have our friendship and work together whenever we can and in any capacity. And he was kind enough to put me in his videos from his last solo album, Not Your Suicide, and that's up on YouTube. And so, yeah, Michael and I are always looking for opportunities to get together and play. I think this year's Monsters of Rock cruise, I think we're going to sit in on each other's sets.
Oh, that's great.
He invited me to sit in on his acoustic set, and he's just a good guy and a great talent. Not to be ignored, the fact that he has great talent, because I suppose all that doesn't go far if the guy can't sing and play guitar like he does. But he's a great guy and a great talent. I'm really glad to be a friend of his.
Yeah, you know, my experience with Stryper is somewhat along your lines, where I got to that first show and I was somewhat dismissive. I said, "Oh, I'll go see the Bumblebee guys. This will be fun for a laugh." And then they start playing, and musically they're just tight. They just blow you away, and all of a sudden you have to sort of stand up and pay attention and go, "Oh, okay, this is not just guys in a costume. It's musicians being musicians." And it's just a great experience. And then after that, I had a chance to interview Michael along the years for the the solo album, "I'm Not a Suicide," and his book, and some other times. And he's just been so nice, so professional, so engaging with the conversation. Uh, you just can't not be a fan. You just can't not like this guy.
Yeah, yeah. I guess the phrase "kill you with kindness"
Yeah.
works with him,
Yeah.
right? Because that's exactly how I feel about Michael. It's just like, well, you can't not like this guy. He's talented, and he's like one of the nicest guys in the business. So, I'm all about it, just in terms of wishing him nothing but the best and success and all that good stuff.
And absolutely. And again, and I'm holding it in front of my hands here, the Only to Rise Sweet Lynch album. If you haven't picked it up, you've got to do yourself the favor, and if you have the money for it, especially get the Japanese import as an extra track. But it's just 12 songs of solid rock. I mean, you get two guys from Lynch Mob and the guy from Stryper, and you say, okay, let's put them together, and they could have called it in. They could have said, we'll put out any old junk, some old demos, and we'll polish them up, but they didn't. They made a real album, a solid album, and fans of this type of music, they're just gonna love it. And I'm so hoping that there's a Sweet Lynch #2 and a Sweet Lynch #3 and a tour, because it can't just be a one-off album. That would be criminal, quite frankly. So good on Michael, and good on George. He's been taking a rough ride in the media over the last 10 years with the whole Dawkins story, and it's nice to just have this positive piece of work for people to enjoy.
Yeah, well, George is an amazing guitar player and
Absolutely.
a great guy as well. I had the opportunity to actually get to jam with him at the top of 2014. Night Ranger was invited to play at the opening of the Carnegie Center for the Arts in Turlock, California. I think essentially it's basically a rock and roll memorabilia museum.
Right.
And so it was also Ace Frehley and Bunny Carlos who were all invited to play. So we all got up, and they basically came up and played with Night Ranger. So George came up and played "Don't Tell Me You Love Me" with us.
Wow.
Which was just awesome. It's up online on YouTube for anybody to check out. But so Brad Gillis takes his solo, and I think that it was George after that, and then I played Jeff Watson's solo. And then we all did sort of a free-for-all round of playing solos on it, which was all of us kind of playing at the same time. And it was really a blast to get to share the stage with him on that. And then Ace came up, and we did Cold Gin and Rock and Roll All Night, and it was all of us, George Lynch and Ace Frehley and Night Ranger, basically. So it was great times. But it gave me an opportunity to get to know George a bit, and so I just ran into him at NAMM, and he's a great guy, and absolutely an unbelievable guitar player. A huge influence on me when I was just starting out on guitar.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned Bunny Carlos. I'm a huge Cheap Trick fan. What did you do with him? Did you jam at all on anything, or was he just at the event?
Yeah, of course we did. We did "I Want You to Want Me." I'm trying to think what else. I feel like there was something else that we did with him, or maybe it was just the one. I can't remember off the top of my head.
That's one more than me, and I'm jealous. I got to tell you, Bunny's the man.
Dude, he had it. It was just completely such amazing feel. Great pocket, and we all sat right in it. We all just looked around smiling, and he was the consummate pro. Showed up at soundcheck and played it flawlessly, and was a great guy to be around.
I can imagine. Speaking of great guys, why don't we actually stop talking here and let Michael start talking? Let's listen to the interview with Michael Sweet. Yeah, Michael Sweet, the one and only. Here he is. Let's talk Sweet Lynch. First and foremost, you're the producer on this album, or certainly one with Serafino from Frontiers. Tell me about producing the album and what it meant to you to produce it, what qualifies you to produce it? Is producing something that
Sure.
interests you in a more general endeavor?
Right. Well, it's always, there's different producer hats. I'd call Serafino probably an executive producer in
Right.
the sense that he's the one that called me and said, "Do you want to do this?"
Right.
So it certainly wouldn't have happened without Serafino, having the idea to do it, and of course, financing it.
Right.
So, he's definitely the executive producer. In terms of the actual production producer, Serafino didn't have a hand in that at all.
Right.
I basically asked him if I could produce it, and he graciously allowed me to and agreed, and I wound up producing the album. And it was just kind of I viewed it as a point to kind of show people outside of Stryper what I can do as a producer.
Right.
And I don't know if it's necessarily the best example. I think it's a really good sounding album. I love how it turned out.
Agreed.
But that being said, it was still somewhat on a low budget, and if I had $100,000 or $150,000 to play with, then I could really show people what I could do as a producer. Some of these big
But wait a second,
producers.
haven't things changed a bit in this day and age? Now that we have Pro Tools and we're not dealing with 2-inch tape and cutting stuff and all, can't you do stuff on a cheaper budget and still make it sound like $1 million?
You can,
Okay.
to a degree,
Okay.
but you are still limited. When the less money you have, the more limited you are. The faster you have to do it.
Sure. Okay.
The caliber of musicians you have to hire. Thank God I didn't have to cut corners on Sweet Lynch,
Mm-hmm.
but I had to pay Brian and James, and that came with the price.
Mm-hmm.
If I got the next guy down the chain, whoever that might have been, I would have saved money, but I also would have got different sounding tracks.
Okay, fair enough.
Possibly as good, probably not as good. So, but it's one of those things where you don't need to spend the $1 million like you used to on albums. Stryper spent $650,000+ on In God We Trust.
Wow.
You don't need to spend anywhere near that nowadays with Pro Tools and the way you can cut corners. But at the same time, when you're offered $20,000 and $25,000, I won't tell you what we got for this album, but a lot of bands out there are working on a $15,000 or $20,000 budget, if that. They're given $10,000 and said, "Here, go make an album." That's next to impossible to put out a great quality album that holds up to anything else out there on $10,000. I wouldn't do it. I would basically, if someone wanted to hire me as a producer and they said, "We got a $10,000 budget," I'd say, "Guys, thanks for thinking of me, but sorry."
Right.
It's not going to happen.
What would be a normal budget then for an album? For you to be interested, would somebody have to come with 100,000, 200,000? Is
No,
30,000?
No. I'm certainly workable, and the bottom line is this. I always give incredible breaks on my cost, on my price. Comparatively speaking, to guys like Bob Marlette and
Mm-hmm.
The Michael Wagners of the world and whatnot. But I still want to be paid. If I'm going to go spend 2 months on something,
Right.
2 months of my life, I'd like to be compensated for it.
Right. Fair enough.
And a lot of times that's someone saying, "Oh man, we'll give you $500
Right.
for 2 months," and unfortunately that's something I have to pass on because I have a mortgage and a family and bills to pay. But if I could make a reasonable amount of money and pay the bills and whatnot, I'm good. I was able to turn the Sweet Lynch album in for a very fair price.
Right.
Stryper budgets are a little higher than that. We're still blessed to get fairly decent budgets.
Yeah.
If we get 75 or 100,000 or $125,000, we're extremely happy.
Let's move away from the budget a second and talk about the sound you were trying to get. Do you think, in the same vein as Stryper, there's a sound, and you want to sound sort of like what the Stryper albums sound like? Were you going for something completely new? And I'll finish that with, Is it dangerous to self-produce? I mean, can you be as objective as you need to be?
Even more so.
Okay.
I don't recommend this to all people in bands who want to produce, but you know, there's a time and a place for a producer.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
unfortunately, many producers are a waste of time and money.
Agreed.
And I'm just putting it out there. I'm just saying, because I've learned from experience. I've worked with producers that I've hired and paid 20 grand advances to, or 40,000 advances, and given them 4 or 5 or 6 points on an album. And afterwards, I'm just thinking, what was the point of that?
Right.
You know, the name didn't get us anywhere. The sticking your head in every 2 hours and saying it sounds good, and then, you know, walking out the door to go watch TV, or going home, getting there at 2 in the afternoon and going home at 8 in the evening, when we get there at 10 a.m. and stay there till 1 a.m., I don't see the point.
Right.
And, you know, I know, and I say this humbly, I know what I want, and I know how to get it. I've lived in studios my whole life, and I guess because I'm a musician and in a band, it's instantly something that people instantly do. So it seems most people is they don't view you as a real producer.
Well, that does come up. I mean, when I look at the last 2 Kiss albums, and I'm a huge Kiss fan, and it says produced by Paul Stanley. My first reaction as a fan is, come on, why? And you know, that wasn't fair, because Sonic Boom and Monster ended up being good sounding records, but that initial reaction is like, really? You couldn't hire Rick Rubin, you couldn't make an effort, you know? You know?
And it's funny, and I think you're seeing that in the film industry a lot more too, where actors are producing and directing their own films.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes perfect sense to me, because if they have the talent to do so, who knows better than them to accomplish greatness?
Right.
And I mean, in today's age, speaking on what we were talking about earlier, trying to save money and making albums for less money these days, that's even more the point of not having a producer. When you have a $40,000 budget and your producer wants 20 of it, that's not helping the cause.
Yeah, you're right. What you need to do is hire fans like myself who can tell you what songs sound great. We'll do it for free. Speaking of sounding great, let's talk about actually working with George Lynch. Now, first of all, the song Time Will Tell and Hero Zero are absolutely fantastic. I love them to death.
Oh, good, man.
Tell me about working with George. Obviously, in the 80s, he was your competition. I mean, Dokken and Stryper, I mean, like it or not, bands are in competition. You're competing for club dates. You're competing for fans. Working with George, he's brilliant on guitar. How was that?
It was great. I mean, in the sense that I wasn't in the same room with him.
Mm-hmm.
And I say this jokingly, and maybe that's part of why it was so great.
That's right.
But, you know, I love George to death. I have nothing against him. He's a great guy. But, I mean, we weren't in the same room. So maybe because of that, it allowed for us to be a little bit more creative on our own.
Right.
And, you know, I basically said, George, send me some riffs. He sent me riffs, and then I played around with them and arranged them and finished them as songs, and then recorded and sent it back to him, and he did his guitar tracks and sent it back, and we mixed it and we sent it back to him, and he loved it and I loved it, and it just worked out, man. Thank God. Everyone really was pleasantly surprised and blown away at how it turned out. I mean, it could have turned out just mediocre or blah, the way it was done. And a lot of supergroup albums that are being done these days, I won't name names, some of them are really good, but a lot of them are just not so good.
Right. Well, this one does seem inspired.
They were just kind of thrown away, and they don't have that chemistry and that magic. I think this album does.
Oh, it does. Like I was saying, it seems inspired, and it also seems to me that this is the genesis of an actual band, that there will be a part 2 and a part 3. And if there isn't, well, you know, shame on you, because there should be, because it was really well done. So is it going to be a band? down the road?
Well, I'd like it to be,
Okay.
and I want it to be. I definitely want there to be more. It's sad to read. I read the California Breed
Just broke up.
and there are no more. And I kind of saw that coming.
Right.
I mean, the minute they announced they were going to tour with a different drummer, that was a big red flag to me.
Yeah, when it's within the first 6 months, yeah.
Well, yeah, and I just felt like, ooh, that's not good. I don't know about this. And sadly, unfortunately, my suspicions turned out to be true. And I want to go out with James. I want to go out with Brian. Those are the guys that are in the band that played on the album. I don't want to get other guys if they're not available. And the tricky part is going to be aligning everybody's schedules because everybody's so busy.
Yeah, especially with Brian. He's got Dead Daisies going on. And
very busy, everyone. I mean, I go in the studio in 2 weeks to start on a Stryper album.
Oh, good.
George is doing. He just released Lynch Mob not long ago, and
right.
James is doing Fogarty, and I mean, everybody's just so busy.
Right. But will there be time for some kind of touring, and will there be time for writing for a second album?
We will definitely make the time. We'll definitely make some sort of touring happen. We'll figure that out. And because I really want people to see this band live and hear these songs live. And then in terms of another album, regarding that, there's got to be another album. And I suppose it's a little, I'm putting the horse before the cart by saying there's going to be another album. That's dependent upon, too, how successful it is.
Right.
If it does really well and everybody's pleased, the label included, obviously, then I think everyone will want to do another album, and we will certainly make that happen. I could see that happening sometime next year, and planning on a 2016 release. That'd be pretty awesome.
Oh, that would be fantastic. Now you mentioned Stryper. I'm going to ask you a couple of Stryper questions, if you don't mind. First of all, tell me a little bit about the writing sessions and the upcoming album. When is that going to be finished? When's that going to be released? What are the sort of the plans for Stryper in 2015, 2016?
Well, it's funny because I just went into Stryper mode a little over a week ago.
Okay.
I had no songs, and I just put a tweet out that I finished the songs. I wrote all the songs except for one cover. Oz sent me a few riff ideas, and I put all the songs together in a little over a week.
Okay.
And I think that's a new record for me. I mean, No More Hell to Pay was a few-week process. This was a little over a week, and I'm pretty blown away. I'm still tweaking little things here and there. The guys come out next Thursday, so less than a week.
Wow.
We go in and start recording on the 1st of February. So it seems like it's really fast motion right now. But it's turning out fantastic. It's definitely a little more in the heavy sense. I've got some drop D songs, a little more chuggy and dark and heavy. The lyrics are powerful and kind of scary, some of them. I think people are going to hear it and go, wow, that's Stryper,
Is there still going to be the religious message to the songs? Because I only ask because you're saying it's darker. I mean, you're not doing, satanic verses.
There is still,
okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, some of the words themselves are actually, taken from the Bible. And,
okay.
So that's still there. The lyrics are definitely on the bold and powerful side. They're not like the lyrics of old. A lot of our lyrics, I read back through the lyrics, and at times I'm a little embarrassed because they were just so repetitive and shallow at times, just real simplistic, rock, Jesus. These lyrics are definitely a lot deeper, and I'm pulling from the Bible at times. And there's a song about God creating the heavens and the earth.
Right.
And it's called Let There Be Light, and it's about in the beginning, and it's taken right from Genesis. There's a song about the devil. It's called Fallen, and it just talks about how, when the devil, when he was Lucifer,
right,
an archangel in heaven, when he walked, he was the angel of music, and when he walked, there was music, and it tells a story in that song basically about how he's fallen, and why and how, and it's a real powerful song, and there's some really cool stuff. I think people are going to dig this album. I got a song called Big Screen Lies that's about how the film industry portrays Christians as complete buffoons 1,000,000% of the time.
True.
And that's just not the case. It is sometimes, but those buffoon Christians don't represent all of us.
Yeah.
Well, so you know what? There's some cool stuff on here, and musically speaking, it's heavy. It's just chugging, and people are going to dig it.
Good. So it's not a ballads album. Let me ask you about, since we're talking about the Christian message, how much of that hurt your career and how much of it helped your career? I mean, there must have been some places that said, "Ugh, we don't want to hear from this," and there must have been some places or some people that said, "Because you're saying this message, we want to hear from you." So did it balance out, or was it more hurtful or positive for the career?
I think it was definitely, a little bit of both. Probably
Absolutely
more
both.
of the hurt.
Okay.
It hurt our career, but that doesn't mean we'd go back and change a thing.
And that's not what I asked.
Yeah, there's no regrets whatsoever. We wouldn't change a thing, and that we knew that getting into it.
Right.
And when you make a stand for God, you're going to be ridiculed, you're going to be persecuted, and it's not the most popular subject matter in the world's eyes, and we knew that.
Well, certainly not in the 80s when hedonism was sort of the primary concern of, you look at Motley Crue, girls, 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 and we went to this strip joint and that strip joint, right?
Which is, to me, I mean, you want to talk about, kindergarten and, cliches and repetitiveness over and over again. It's like, I'm so tired of so many bands and so many songs that just, sing about, yeah. We know already. We get it. Girls, drugs, sex. All right, whatever. It's like, it's whoever said that that's what rock and roll is about. I know rock and roll is about rebellion, but to me, all the more reason why who and what we sing about is even cooler, in my opinion, because Christ was the ultimate rebel,
Right. Absolutely. Let me move to another topic here. Boston. You were in the band for, not the city. Well, it's a great city, except it's got a horrible hockey team that we just can't stand. But you're not a Bruins fan, I hope, are you?
I like watching the Bruins occasionally, and the Patriots and whatnot. But I'm not a big sports. I don't sit glued to the television watching sports. So,
well, I'll give you the Patriots. They're a good team. But the band Boston. Just tell me a little bit about the experience. I mean, you went in, you sang for them, and then eventually you went back to concentrate on. You left the band to concentrate on Stryper, and of course, writing your book eventually, and all that wonderful stuff. What was it like being in Boston?
It was great for the time.
Right.
It was. I really believe that Tom and I were brought together to help each other through the darkest time in our lives. Tom having just lost Brad, and me having, I was caretaking and the caretaker of my wife, who was very sick at the time, and eventually, sadly, she passed, and I think Tom and I were there for each other, and we did help each other, and we were brought together for whatever reason to help each other through that time. And I did help Tom a lot, and he helped me a lot. He helped me to smile, gave me hope, by graciously letting me be a part of Boston and letting me feel. I mean, he would come to me and say, "I'm not going to tour without you." There were times when Kyle would get really sick, and my participation in the tour would be in question, and he would pull me outside and say, "Well, we're not going to tour without you. I'll cancel the tour," right. Which I thought was pretty amazing,
Well, it was certainly a commitment to you. That's for sure.
He was very committed to me, and I was very committed to him. And I was the guy. I found out later that the crew guys called me Glue. And I said to my guy Rick Pietro, why do they call me Glue? And he said, because they feel like you're the glue that holds all this together. This tour. Very volatile. Boston tours. Tom's been known to cancel tours before they start and cancel them right in the middle of being out on the road. And if he decides it's not going right or whatever, he'll just say, we're done. So everyone was kind of feeling like they were walking on eggshells the entire tour. And I was the guy that was able to, when Tom was not feeling sound check or he was upset about something or, worked up about whatever, I was able to put a smile on his face and turn everything around in 5 minutes. I wasn't trying to do that. It's just how I could relate to Tom.
Right. You had that positive. And it's funny because when you look at the history of rock, you have the history of Boston, not a lot of albums. You've got Tom, and he doesn't get a lot of the shit that, for example, sorry, excuse the language. He doesn't get a lot of doesn't get a lot of the gruff that somebody like Axl Rose does, and
right.
It's about the same story when you think about it. They're really sort of two of the same. So it's strange.
Well, I mean, two. I guess you could say
similar.
Two of the same, but I mean, I wouldn't even put Axl Rose in the same world as Tom as far as talent goes.
Okay.
I mean, and maybe that's a little harsh for me to say, but Tom Scholz is Tom Scholz. He's a genius.
I'll give you, absolutely.
I don't view Axl as a genius,
Well, Axl is definitely a talented vocalist. Well, I'll certainly give him that. Speaking of old...
No, that's fine. Rolling Stones gave him that. I've never been...
a fan.
He's never been a fan of Axl's and never will be a fan of Axl's. He doesn't do it for me, but hey, the rest of the world, they love his voice and love him and his personality traits and all that other good stuff. And, I guess the point I'm trying to make is, gosh, I wouldn't even put them in the same league,
Okay, fair enough.
There's a
similar story.
There is a little bit of that similarity in the sense of, they're both, how shall I say it? And I'm this way too, very driven by knowing what they want, and they get it. And I'm the same way. I mean, I'm a perfectionist and OCD and ADHD, and in being that way and being all of those things, I tend to come across sometimes as a control freak or a know-it-all or this or that. And I know Tom's the same way. He knows what he wants and knows how to get it. And hey, it's just the way it is.
Yeah, that's a funny thing about being know-it-all. Or there's always this fine line. If you're not a know-it-all, then they're going to say you lack confidence, you don't know what you want. But if you have confidence, well, then you're a know. It's like, well, what do you want me to be? I mean, do you want me, C.C. DeVille of Poison had a brush with greatness with Stryper way back in the day. I just want to have some kind of story about C.C.
Oh my gosh! Well, I first met C.C. on Sunset Boulevard outside of Gazzari's.
Right.
He was fresh out from the New York area,
mm-hmm.
and this is going way back. I want to say it was probably around like 80, 82.
Yeah, early 80s, 81 or 82, yeah.
It was somewhere around then, and I look over and I see this guy who looks very rock and roll, and started talking, and we just kind of hit it off, man. I thought, this guy's cool, and I would like to think or hope that he thought the same about me. And we just became buddies, and one thing led to another. He wound up coming down to our house, and we hung out in clubs together, and he came down to the house eventually and actually jammed with us.
Yeah.
He was looking for a band, and it didn't work out because we were very set on the yellow and black thing, and
right.
This is before Stryper, mind you. And CC had something else in mind. He wanted to do a little bit more of the glam. He even specifically said the purples and the pinks, and I'm not into the yellow and black thing, blah, blah, blah. And that was probably the deal breaker. I don't know that it was so much the musical side as much as it was the
image.
The appearance, the image, yeah.
Yeah, that's the story I've always gotten, that he has said that, and I didn't speak to him about it personally, but the rumor was always that he didn't want to look like a bumblebee, and that's why he didn't join the
Yeah.
band. And how important is image to the band now, and how important was it to the band then?
I think it was more important then.
Of
There was
course.
a lot more detail put into it and specifics. You know, we would go and meet with Ray Brown for 4 or 5 hours to be measured for our new outputs and go over the designs, and you know, we'd spend 10, 15,000 per guy on clothes in one setting. We
Yeah,
don't
but
do that now.
but you still have to go and look like a rock star. You don't just show up in your jeans and a white T-shirt and put on a show. I mean, as a fan, to me, that would be somewhat boring. I mean, you want it to be exciting visually and
Right.
musically, right?
You do, especially for a particular type of music and you have a certain image to uphold. Yeah, absolutely. Some bands go out in jeans and T-shirts, and you know, Bruce Springsteen. I mean, he's kind of known as a jeans and T-shirt kind of guy,
Sure.
all-American guy.
But it's
and
a different
that's his,
fan base, and it's a different
right.
selling point, and you know.
Exactly. But I mean, Stryper, we're kind of like the Christian version of Kiss, you know, or we were.
Yep.
You know, we had the wild outfits and the pyro and the huge stage setup and whatnot, and you know, it was cool. Nowadays, it's a lot more scaled down, and not by choice all the time. Sometimes it's because we have to, because you know, when we're getting paid $15,000 a night instead of $150,000 a night, you got to cut back a little bit. So
Right. No, well, that happens. You mentioned Kiss. You obviously covered "Shout It Out Loud" on one of your albums. Big influence for you?
Kiss was not as big an influence for me as they were to my brother.
Okay.
They were a really big influence on my brother. My brother loved Kiss. I liked Kiss. I went with my brother to the Forum to see Kiss. It was one of my first concerts when I was a kid. So I was, you know, overtaken by the production and the show and everything, but I was just never like a diehard fan of their music. And then as I got older, I started getting more and more into their music and realizing, like, this is really cool stuff. And they've written some amazing songs, you know, very simple, but very powerful and effective. And sometimes simplicity is much more effective and much better in terms of a song than, you know, complicated chord changes and long drawn out pieces. But my point is, you know, I became a fan later on, and you know, certainly they're a big part of the history of Michael Sweet.
Yeah,
Definitely.
absolutely. Now, I actually have to get going in a couple of minutes because I have an appointment down the street. But last word on Lynch, or sort of Sweet and Lynch.
Well, we're excited, man. The album comes out on the 27th
Yep.
in North America. It's coming out on the 23rd in Europe, and you know what, man? We're doing our best to put out the best quality music, the best sounding albums that we can do. And I guess in an effort to kind of, you know, save rock and roll. I know Gene Simmons has stated and quoted that rock is dead, and I know what he was referring to in the money sense. It is kind of dead. It's not what it used to be, but in the musical sense, it's thriving and it's very much alive. And some of the best music's coming out nowadays. And I think we're a part of that elite group. And George and I have done our best to make a killer album, and I think we accomplished that. I'm very proud of it, and I can't wait to see and hear what the world has to say about it once they hear it as a full album.
Yeah, and you know, I have to agree. I get sent links to promo digital copies to stuff all the time, but this one, I heard it and I had to plunk down my money. I got the Japanese import with the bonus track, the whole thing. And listen, I already had it for free. I didn't have to throw out the $30 or the $40 that it cost me.
That's awesome, man. Wow.
But it was worth it, and I'm very proud to say that I did that because it is a great album. And listen, James Lomenzo and Brian Tichy are a solid rhythm section, and you and George, I don't even have to say how good you are, both of you. You know, it's can't miss, and the songs are great. You know, Time Will Tell,
Man,
Hero Zero, The Wish.
I wish I had you recorded on this so I can go and play it for the world right now. But you know, it's a tough sale to get everyone to jump on board with your thoughts and your views. I'm not sure what it is. I mean, I think because I'm in Stryper and George is in Lynch Mob, and we do something different, people get scared. They're a little afraid, thinking that, okay, Michael's not going to be in Stryper anymore, and George isn't going to be in Lynch Mob anymore. Yeah. And I think that keeps people from giving it 100% support. But we're trying to shout from the rooftops and make people aware of, look, just listen to the album. Do you like it or do you not like it? It's a great album, and I think if anyone listened with open ears, most people would really like it and appreciate it because it's very cool.
Oh, it is a great album. And I think people are listening. I read a review online today, and I forget what website had it, but they gave it a 10 on 10, and they said it was 12 songs of ear candy. And
yeah,
you know what?
Awesome.
I'm all into that. That's the truth. Anyway, as always, it's a pleasure speaking with you. Always a great time. And boy, time flew on. We already did over 40 minutes. I didn't get to ask you about the book, and I didn't get to.
I know, man. Well, there's always next time, anytime. Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you, Michael. Always a pleasure.
All right, buddy. Have a great one.
You too. Now.
See you, Mitch.
Bye bye. And there you have it, folks. My interview with Michael Sweet of Stryper, and of course of Sweet Lynch. The album is Only to Rise, and head over to michaelsweet.com for everything, Michael. Joel, that was great. He's just such a nice interview. He's talented. You just want to help him. I mean, not that we're helping him, but you just want to tell the world, pick up something, Michael, and enjoy it, right?
Yeah, you definitely want good things to come back to him because he definitely seems to put that out into the world. So, good dude, and definitely no shortage of talent there, man, with him. So, I'll always be willing to lend a hand to play guitar for him when and if at all possible. So, just a great dude. Can't say enough good things about him.
Yeah, in fact, I'd love to see it. If he puts together a solo band or something to have you out there, that would be great.
Yeah, we've definitely talked about it. I'm not sure what type of availability is going to be on either end with scheduling, but we've definitely talked about it. I said, man, I'd love to jam with you sometime, man. It'd be just so great to get out there and play your tunes with you. But we'll see what happens, man.
Yeah,
never say never.
Yeah, and of course, I'll keep mentioning it, folks. Sweet Lynch, Only to Rise. You got to get it. It is absolutely worth it. I know it's only the second month of 2015, but this is definitely going to be one of those front runners for your top 10, your top 15, your top 20 list because it's that good. So there you go, folks. Joel, always a pleasure. And of course, folks can find you at joelhoekstra.com. Shall we spell it or shall we just let the folks guess?
Well, let's do it because it's hard.
Yeah.
So, my name is Joel, Joel, Hoekstra, Hoekstra, joelhoekstra.com. Please, you can link to any of my social media stuff. Please do say hello. I'll be more than happy to respond to you and all that good stuff. Yeah,
and of course, you'll be out on the road with Whitesnake soon enough, which I think is another exciting moment for me because I love that band.
Yeah, slightly, you think? Yeah. I'm really looking forward to that. It's going to be awesome. So big world tour coming up this year, a new album coming out in the spring. And so, yeah, very, very happy. Lots of good things happening right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't forget, michaelsweet.com. And if you're interested in following me on Twitter, I'm at Mitch Lafon. You can also find me on Facebook. There you have it, folks. Another great episode, another great guest, and another great co-host. Joel, this is always a pleasure. I could have you do every single one of these because you're
awesome, man. Well, let me tell you something, man. You're one of the best interviewers I've ever heard. So it's a pleasure to be a part of. And anytime I'm available, count me in, man. Let's do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Joel.
Awesome. Thank you, Mitch.
Bye now.
Bye.